Today we are going to be talking about a pageant that we haven't spoken about in a very long time, and that is mostly because of the fact that it hasn't happened in nearly 2 years. Of course, I am talking about Miss World. Now, believe it or not, Miss World used to be one of the most highly respected pageants in the world, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who still sees it as such, especially here in Southern Africa. I'm currently in Namibia, but I was born in South Africa. In South Africa especially, pre-2017, Miss World was still very, very highly respected, and it was a very coveted crown then. And like I said before, I'm sure in some countries Miss World is still seen as the top pageant, but in my opinion, Miss World has become less and less spectacular over the years. Not to mention, they do tend to skip some time lately, and I don't know where their money comes from, but I do know that viewership is very important when it comes to monetizing a lot of these international pageants. The fact that Miss World hasn't yet shut its doors with what it's been through since the pandemic is a miracle in itself. What I personally tend to not like about Miss World is they tend to add too many extra unnecessary things and segments. For example, nowadays as extras they have the multimedia award, they have the head-to-head challenge, they have the sport challenge, they have the top model competition, and I'm sure I'm missing something out. Oh yes, of course, who can forget the talent competition, which I think is also a bit sort of redundant in my opinion. For me, I think the Beauty with a Purpose initiative that the Miss World brand has had going on for a while now, as well as the head-to-head challenge, are really the only extra segments that are worth keeping. Beauty with a Purpose, of course, because of its societal benefits, and head-to-head because it really allows viewers to get to know each and every contestant individually and gauge their strength. For the rest of the things on the roster, honestly, for me, it just feels like there are too many worthless trophies being handed around at Miss World, and to be honest with you, you know the old saying, too much circulation makes the price go down. That's how I feel about Miss World and all of their awards and all of the extra things that they have going on. It's really a lot. And in that same vein, of course, I think a top 40, okay, 40 women, it has always been too much. It is just pick 20, pick 16, just keep it simple. That is where I think Miss Universe succeeds, where Miss World fails. Miss Universe understands the inherent value of simplicity when it comes to holding people's attention. Especially in this day and age, holding people's attention is nothing if not very, very, very difficult and an art form within itself. But to be honest with you, even if Miss World had the most well thought out and spectacular show on earth, it means nothing if the show isn't held annually. Predictability and anticipation is the name of the game when it comes to having a pageant as a business, and honestly, when it comes to predictability, the Miss World pageant hasn't happened since the 2021 edition, which was almost 2 years ago now, and before that it hasn't happened since the 2019 edition. So with that being said, for the past 4 years, Miss World has only happened twice, which is why they haven't been on a lot of people's lips, whereas Miss Universe, Miss Grand, they're succeeding because they are being hosted annually. We know more or less what time of year, and obviously with Miss World, that's just been all up in the air. They've postponed several times, which I think is very confusing and very sort of crushing for viewers, to be honest with you. And this sort of thing, changing it up a bunch and not knowing when it's going to be happening, that affects predictability, which leaves viewers uninterested. At least Miss World should really try to focus on having it once a year, really, really thought out. I know the pandemic put a stick in the mud, but they should really start focusing on that again, because at least then they can let us know like 4-6 months ahead of time when the date is, where the venue is, and that will build anticipation, which is also very, very important in pageantry. But that anticipation does suffer when viewers have to constantly live in fear about whether or not Miss World is being serious about the date and time that they put out to us. And honestly, it's also pretty difficult keeping anticipation going for 2 to 3 years. Now, one thing that I must say Miss World does have going for them is their women. The women who compete at Miss World are the epitome of grace, elegance, poise. They are absolutely lovely, but I honestly just don't think that the type of women who represent their countries at Miss World are showcased enough and appreciated enough for their unique traits. Now, honestly, for me, I know a lot of people might differ. I don't need to see Miss World girlies walking in swimsuits. Honestly, I just don't think that suits the regal sort of vibe that Miss World has going for them, but I do need more of an emphasis on those gown walks. Gown walks, to me, are about more than just the gown or the design of the gown or how it looks. Gown is an overall feeling. It's a moment that a woman has as her entire journey is coming to a close. It's magical, honestly, if gown is done correctly, a la Catriona Gray, etc. And I just don't think that Miss World has an appreciation of the inherent beauty of this segment of pageantry. They should place more of an emphasis on that and not necessarily do away with all of the elements of pageantry that made it successful and popular in the first place. So in conclusion, Miss World hasn't been happening a lot, but the last time it did, I remember this personally, because a lot of people hated it. It was excruciatingly boring and underwhelming. I absolutely despised the previous edition of Miss World. Of course, the woman who won ultimately was very deserving, but Miss World really needs to step it up if they want to keep viewership over other more entertaining, more interesting pageants like Miss Universe, Miss Grand, etc., etc. Miss World just isn't living up to its name as the oldest beauty pageant in the world. So I think definitely Miss World has some work to do with in terms of marketing, in terms of bringing people on board who actually understand how the modern sort of entertainment business works, how they can structure their pageant to be more relevant and to be more relatable to a wider spectrum of people. The way that Miss Universe sort of keeps things simple, they keep things predictable and all of that. Miss World just isn't doing that, and that is what is leading to a lot of people sort of starting to see Miss World as a lesser than pageant, which shouldn't be the case, because Miss World ultimately is the oldest major international pageant in the world right now and does deserve a lot of respect, especially because of the caliber of women who compete there. Miss World definitely just needs to step it up and give those women a stage and a platform worthy of them. Anyway guys, those are my thoughts on Miss World. Let me know what you guys think. Are you excited for Miss World to be happening one of these days in India? I honestly, I'm just so sick of them changing the dates all the time, because you get excited but then it's like, oh, postponed again. Miss World, what are you doing? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe and I will see you in the next one. Bye.